Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Market Hall. It's so great to see you all this evening. Are we excited about 3MT, 3-Minute Thesis? Let's hear it! I'm so happy to be with you. For those of you who know me, I'm sorry. But for the rest of you, I'm Dr. Michael Eamon. I'm the principal of Catherine Parr Trail College, the graduate college here at Trent University, and we are so happy to work with academic skills, with the School of Graduate Studies, with the TGSA, with the Office of Innovation and Research to bring you 3-Minute Thesis, and we're going to have a great evening tonight. So let's hear it again for 3-Minute Thesis! But before we begin, I just want to say how grateful I am to be here. This is such a wonderful crowd, such a wonderful event. I think this is the 13th 3-Minute Thesis that we have done, with a little bit of a bump through COVID, but for 13 years we've been doing this very exciting event. And for most of it, we've been doing it down here in Market Hall and other places downtown, and it's so special to be here. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be with you tonight. I'm also very grateful that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Michisaukee-Anishinaabe. And you know, for time out of memory, the Anishinaabe and their ancestors were on this territory and moved through this territory. And in fact, Trent University is on the treaty and traditional territory, and Trail College, the downtown campus, is also on this treaty and traditional territory near what was a grand portage. Some of you may not know this, but there was a huge portage. We all know what a portage is, right? If you're from Winnipeg, it's more of like a portage. But if you know what a portage is, it's when you take your vessel and you put it over your head and you walk. And so this grand portage went all the way from Curve Lake and went down what is now Chemong Road and hooked around Trail College and came right down by where we are right now and exited out at Little Lake. And so the Anishinaabe and their ancestors used this portage to communicate and to walk and to exchange. Because you know, when you walk, you talk and you exchange ideas. And I think there's no more special and honorable way to acknowledge the traditional teachings than to keep this space here as Trail College and indeed Trent University as a space of exchange and communication. So let's honor that through communicating tonight. So if you don't mind hitting the next slide, thank you. I get it. It's not easy being a grad student. One does not simply have a social life being a grad student. One does not simply shower a lot when they're a grad student. I was there too. I get it. One does not simply eat the foods they should eat when they're a grad student. That's okay. But what we try to do at Trent University is offer opportunities for students to kind of get a bit of a social life. And so if we have the next slide there, Sue, hit it. Wow, look at that. And again, whoa. And again, amazing. And this is just what in 2 dimensions what Trail College offers grad students to get them out into a social life. Imagine what we can do in 3 dimensions. So you need to come and check us out, especially for Pizza Fridays this summer, and enjoy kind of getting together. And this space, this event, is another place where we can get together, be social, and enjoy each other's company while at the same time learn. Now, what are we learning about? Well, when you think of Australia, this is where 3-Minute Thesis came from. It came from Australia, and you think of kangaroos, koala bears, Hugh Jackman. You think about all those things when you think about Australia, but you don't always think about 3MT. And it was started at the University of Queensland, a collegiate university, just much like Trent University. And it was this idea that if you could give an elevator pitch, if you could distill your research down into 180 seconds, wouldn't that be great? And wouldn't it be great if we had some sort of competition and you could win lots of fabulous prizes and even go to provincials for this? And voila, 3MT became part of Trent University's DNA, and we've been doing this for about 13 years now. And so it's a very exciting thing, but it's also an international competition. And all those people, if you are not familiar with 3MT here, all the contestants here have a chance at provincials this year. Let's hear it. Ooh, provincials, yeah. In Orillia, Ontario. There's an all-expenses-paid trip to Orillia, the Sunshine City. It is great, folks. And so we're all going to be on our edge to see who's going to go off to provincials this year. So we do have rules. And I've broken every rule so far in the past 4 minutes that I've been speaking. So the rules are only 1 slide is permitted. There's no animations or special effects. No additional electronic media is permitted as well. What else do we have for rules? There are no props. You can't go more than 3 minutes, and after 3 minutes, in fact, I don't know if you can see this. There's a big screen here, and it's just staring me right in the face. It says 3:00, and it's just like, don't get too scared, folks, but it's scaring me. It's like looking me right in the eye saying, I've got 3 minutes, and that's it. And no notes are permitted, and presentations are only to be in the spoken word, which really I don't like, because if you could sing your way through this, it would go a lot faster. Well, not for you, because you're not listening to me. But, singing and dancing and having canned music and things would make this go, kind of a little faster. But is not allowed. So we're going to be serious. We're going to be focused. We're going to listen to the spoken word, and we're going to be amazed, because this is quite amazing. We don't need all those fancy things where we're going. We don't need fancy animations. What you're going to see in the raw is communication done at its finest and stripped down to its best. And so here's the judging criteria. We have 3 main criteria. 1, communication style. Was the thesis topic and its significance communicated in a language appropriate to an intelligent but non-specialist audience? So you're all intelligent out there, but you may not know in depth what all the subject matter is about, and that's okay, because really it is the job of the presenter to get you excited, to get you intrigued in knowing more. And indeed, that's what knowledge is all about, folks. It's not about telling people answers. It's about encouraging people to find out more. Also, comprehension. Did the presentation help the audience understand the research? So think about this. And, did the presentation really kind of resonate with you? And did you understand everything that was communicated? And finally, engagement. Did the oration make the audience want to know more? Again, this idea of it's so important to want to know more. Why am I telling you these rules? Well, because these are the rules that our fabulous judges have to abide by. But wait, we have judged prizes, and we have an audience choice award too, where you become the judge. And so remember all these important factors as well for when you get to vote for the audience choice. So if we can go to the next slide there, Sue. You may ask, what wonderful prizes are there for 2024? Oh my gosh, so we have more prizes this year than ever before. So let's hear it for more prizes. Oh yeah, it's great. We have the School of Graduate Studies Grand Prize, $500 and all expenses paid to the Ontario Provincial Finals. Let's hear it for Grad Studies. Woo! We have the Catherine Parr Trail College Prize, $500 to the second prize place winner. Let's hear it for Catherine Parr Trail College. We have the Trent Graduate Student Association, the TGSA Award, third prize for $500. Let's hear it for the grad students. And finally, for $500, we have the Office of Research and Innovation Audience Choice Prize. And this is the prize that you guys get to pick. So it's super duper exciting, and I'm so excited to be here about that. But, we do have an all-star panel of judges, so I want to introduce our panel right now. First of all, we have Sarah Budd, the CEO and president of the Peterborough and Kawartha Chamber of Commerce. It is so great that you're here, Sarah. Thank you so much. Sarah, if you don't, you should know Sarah if you don't know Sarah. She's wonderful. She's newly part of the Peterborough, or head of the Peterborough Chamber of Commerce, but before that you may have known her from Habitat for Humanity, where she was there for 15 years. Sarah's a local person, and she lives and breathes the Kawarthas, and we're so glad that you're here tonight. So let's hear it for Sarah Budd. Next, we have the one, the only Dr. Bob Ezrin, 22, an officer of the Order of Canada. In fact, if this was Britain, we'd say, sir, it's good to see you. And it's great to have Bob Ezrin here. Now, some of you may know Bob Ezrin, and if you don't know of Bob Ezrin, you've definitely heard of some of his work. He helped a few bands along, some, little grad stuff like Pink Floyd, Kiss. You may have heard of these bands. If you've heard of the U2, he sort of helped produce them. So he is an incredible Canadian icon and music producer, but more importantly, he's a philanthropist. And with the Waving Flag and Canaan Sun, he helped generate so much money for charity with that, and he is a member of the Canadian Music the Hall of Fame. So many wonderful accolades to Bob. So let's put our hands together. We are so honored to have you, Bob. Put your hands together for Bob Ezrin. And finally, last but not least, we have someone that everybody here knows. We have Dr. Stephen Stone, 66, also a member of the Order of Canada. He is our Chancellor, but he's so much more. If you've watched Degrassi, you may have seen what he's done in television production. It's kind of cool, actually. I was seeing with Bob, Sarah, we were having dinner, and Sarah was talking about, oh my gosh, Degrassi, so much of my childhood watching that, and then like Pink Floyd, so much of my childhood, so much of your growing up is in this room right here. And so let's put our hands together for Stephen Stone and all that he does for us and continues to do, our Chancellor, Stephen Stone. Thank you so much to all of our three judges. They're going to work. They have all their work cut out for them. We've given them the rules. They've rewritten the rules. We wrote the rules back to how it should be. We've redefined the rules. The rules are so tight, let me tell you this year. Not only do we have the most money, we have the most, accurate measurement system for judging you folks this year. So, we just keep refining it every year. Is it a scale of 5? Is it a scale of 100? We've got it both. Like, we have so many scales. It's going to be the most accurate way of getting the algorithms nuts, folks. It's going to be great tonight. But before we start with our first presentation, I just want to say how in awe I am of you guys. This isn't easy. This is hard stuff. To stand up here, to talk about yourself, you might think it's not that hard to talk about yourself. It is hard because you want the audience, you are passionate about what you do, and you want that audience to understand what you do, but you're also quite aware that you have just that 3-minute window to do it. And to just become a candidate is wonderful, and I'm so glad that you're all here because nunc cognosco ex parte, baby. That's what I like to say. And you're like, what does that mean? It means now I know in part. Nunc cognosco ex parte is the motto of Trent University. And it is that idea that the most important thing we can do as scholars is know there's more to learn. That's so important. Because when you're a know-it-all, why would you want to learn anything more? When you're a proud know-it-some, like you guys are, nunc cognosco ex parte, there's more to learn and more to give, because we all know this is the ivory tower, and we sometimes feel like we're part of that. We sometimes feel isolated and stuck in that ivory tower, and sometimes the public sees the university as just that tower. But tonight, it's one of those rarefied, wonderful moments where we can break down any perception that there is such a tower and tell the public exactly how important what we do is, and the research that we do, how it can affect the lives of others. And so before we start, I'm so excited to hear what you have to say, and I'm so glad we all breathe this air together, because we all, regardless of where we come from, what we believe in, we all have this one thing in common. We all believe in the power of education, and the power of education to make us better people. And when we become better people, then we can go on and make the lives of others better. And that starts tonight in 3 minutes. You're going to give to everybody a little bit of amelioration. Everyone's going to get a little bit better by being with you and hearing you. So enjoy it tonight and have a great time. And let's get ready to rumble! All right. Are we ready? It is now, this is the tough position. I'd like to introduce Emily Como in psychology with Existing in Borders, Femme Experiences of Community Collection. Emily.
When you think of a lesbian, your first thought is probably not someone who looks like. We have a lot of stereotypes around lesbians and masculinity, and yeah, of course, lesbians can be masculine, but these stereotypes shape our expectations of what lesbians and sexual minority women are like. The term femme comes from butch femme lesbian bar culture in the 1940s. The pairings of butches with their masculine attire and short hair, and femmes with their exaggerated femininity made lesbians visible in ways that they had never been with their overt displays of sexuality. Femme has long been defined in relation to masculinity, to butch. And while the term still honors its roots, femmes have pushed to be recognized beyond this relationship to masculinity to stand on their own. Femme has expanded to include multiple sexual and gender identities, becoming a queer identity for all of those who embody and express femininity. Femmes exist in borders. They're often assumed straight, but don't fit into straight spaces due to their queerness. However, they're also met with suspicion in queer spaces. Femininity is seen as a performance for male consumption, so of course femmes must be tourists in queer spaces and will eventually return to heterosexuality. This leaves femmes in an in-between space where they don't fit in either community. But why is community important for femmes? Connection to the 2S LGBTQ community is associated with reduced psychological distress and a more positive view of sexual and gender identity. My research looks at how femmes experience connection to the 2S LGBTQ community, and if this is even still helpful when it comes with identity invalidation and exclusion from other queer people. The quantitative research that I have done will help us paint a more full picture of the femme experience. So we did find that femmes in general experience connection to the 2S LGBTQ community, but it's not related to their well-being for better or worse. Qualitative studies have shown us the pressures that femmes experience to be more masculine in order to be accepted as a sexual minority, as well as experiences of being dismissed due to being feminine. So while femmes are experiencing this connection to the community, they're also probably continuing to experience exclusion due to their femininity. This will only begin to change once we start to value femininity, both within the 2S LGBTQ community and as a broader society. As a femme, I choose my femininity every day. It does not make me lesser, and it is not something imposed upon me. We need to unpack the way we see femininity, not as something subordinate to masculinity, but as a source of agency and empowerment.
Wow, that was amazing. Thanks so much, Emily. You had the pole position. This is the hardest thing to start it all off, and I think you knocked it out of the park. Everybody had to submit a bio, just so people know this, so we can have some flavor of what people do. And you said in your bio you like to read books. Now, what kind of books do you like? A particular genre of books at all?
I read a lot of fantasy and some romance. Honestly, I am open to anything that's like LGBTQ because that's my area of interest in general.
That's great. Now, you say that you also like, I think you said Skyping. I'm like, Skyping back home to Halifax. And I thought, do people Skype anymore? So tell me what's going on in Halifax that you're Skyping to.
So my wife is back in Halifax. We got married in August, but I've been here for the last 2 years. Oh, no. We've spent about a month of our married life together so far.
I'm sorry to hear about that, but congratulations. Let's put our hands together first for getting married.
Thank you.
And next, let's say, long distance sucks. Yes. I'm so sorry, but I think, do you have plans to get together soon or bridge the gap a bit?
Moving back home soon, so I'm in my second year and finishing up my thesis, and then I get to go home and, just continue life from there.
That's wonderful. Let's put our hands together. Enjoy it. Let's hear it for Emily. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, folks, we've gotten off to a great start. And so now it's my honor to introduce Brennan Cornell from Material Science with Towards the Robot Apocalypse, Charge Domain Walls for Neuromorphic Computing. Brennan.
This is a brain. The robot armies will need these. Pound for pound, the human brain is the most powerful and energy-efficient computer in the world. 83 billion neurons with 100 trillion connections. When you learn something new, the connections between neurons get stronger, making it easier to communicate. Scientists have taken these ideas to build neural networks that simulate the brains. And these networks are the foundations for the large language models powering today's AI like ChatGPT or Stable Diffusion. Unfortunately, today's computers are not designed like brains, so it's very energy inefficient. A recent study suggests that AI will consume 0.5% of global electricity by 2027. If we want to forestall this future, we need to build more energy efficient neuromorphic computers. And a key piece of this will be something that controls the strength of connections between computing nodes. Now, I'm not a neuroscientist, I'm a physicist, and I study ferroelectrics. And ferroelectrics have many nice properties, but foremost amongst them is their ability to generate a spontaneous polarization. Now, most ferroelectrics don't have the same polarization everywhere, so at the boundary between different regions, we get a domain wall. So this is a 2D cross-section of a ferroelectric. I've got two different regions, and they're separated by this nice V-shaped domain wall. Now, along this domain wall, I get an accumulation of positive electric charge, and it attracts negatively charged electrons. And these electrons can move around, but only on the surface of the wall. And so this gives me the functional equivalent of a wire inside of my material. So these red hot spots here, these are electrons, and so they're creating a one-dimensional wire that stretches in and out of the surface of the screen. Now, I can control the location and shape of these domain walls, and hence the wires, and this gives me control over the direction and strength of current flow inside the ferroelectric, much like in a conventional electronic circuit. Moreover, once I fix this configuration, it's permanent until I change it, which makes it very energy efficient. These were precisely the properties needed for connections in neuromorphic computers. Charge domain walls and ferroelectrics are one piece on the path to a more energy efficient future for AI. So remember, even though the robots will be trying to fight us, they'll also be fighting climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brendan. It's so good to know that the revolution will be digitized.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. What form will that AI revolution take place?
This is a great question. So I've been thinking about this a lot, and I have bad news.
How bad?
So the bad news is, the Matrix envisioned AI in the future, and they needed humankind around as like a little battery so that they could be powered.
Yeah, we're like bunnies.
But I'm making them more energy efficient, so they don't need us around anymore. So we're really talking about a Terminator scenario here, where mankind is just going to get wiped out as a consequence of my research. So apologies to everybody. This isn't how I wanted it to go.
You and me both. Let's hear it for Brendan.
Thank you.
Well, on that happy note, the competition's over. No, I would like to introduce our next contestant, the wonderful Jessica Johnson in psychology with Unique Solutions for Unique Problems, Lessons about Sexual Consent from BDSM. Jessica.
Unique Solutions for Unique Problems. I chose this title because I thought it was cute or fun or eye-catching. But the reality is the problem I will be discussing today is not fun or cute or even that unique. The reality is, despite the best efforts of a number of programs, campaigns, and educators, researchers are consistently finding again and again that we are just not communicating sexual consent very well. We're not speaking to each other. We're not checking in with our partners to make sure they're okay. We're not being direct about what we want. And as a result, in Canada, hundreds of people experience sexual assault every day. So no, this is not a unique problem. It is an impossible one, an insurmountable one, or at least it feels that way. But this is where the unique solutions come in. My solution, BDSM. Bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, sadism, masochism. The practice of deliberately engaging with pain or power dynamics to elicit pleasure. There's this fascinating thing happening right now where researchers are starting to discover that BDSM practitioners actually are communicating consent well. So I got curious. I decided to dig deeper and discover what exactly is different about consent communication in the BDSM community and why. Are they using more direct verbal cues? And what influence does being part of a community have on BDSM practitioners' behaviors and ideals? I collected responses from 1,200 individuals worldwide and conducted between group analysis, between practitioners and non-practitioners, and found overwhelming evidence to suggest that BDSM practitioners are actually just better at communicating consent. They are talking to each other. They are checking in with their partners. They are so much more confident and self-assured in their abilities. The entire culture of BDSM is so predicated on sexual communication that practitioners report that they can't even experience any pleasure without that enthusiastic consent part. There are so many lessons to be learned here from the BDSM community. Communication, respect, confidence, self-assuredness, how to say no, how to say yes. And these lessons could not come soon enough. We can protect vulnerable youth against adverse sexual outcomes. So, sit down, listen up, because this may be the sexiest lesson you will ever learn. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I just love this idea that is actually something that was seen perhaps as fetish or fringe, is really has lessons to communicate. Is that what kind of drew you into this idea that perhaps something on the margins can teach the majority something?
Absolutely, that's exactly what I'm getting at. And so many people's exposure to BDSM or kink in general is through 50 Shades of Grey, or even like going back a little bit further, like the story of O, but it is such like a one-dimensional portrayal of that sexual phenomenon. And through my research, understanding that these people, this community has so much more to say and are so much more careful and deliberate about what they do, that there is so much more value that they can teach everybody else. Yeah.
Oh, that's so wonderful, and thanks for sharing. It's such an important lesson. I read through your bio, and you of course, you have so much more than just research. You're a musical theater expert. Could I say that you're a performer, you're an actor, you're a triple threat perhaps even?
So I have been doing theater most of my life. I actually just finished up a show here at Market Hall.
Let's hear it. Catch Me As You Can.
It was, Thank you. Yeah, it was Catch Me If You Can, so I performed in that, but I was also the assistant director. So yeah, I do theater as like my main hobby.
And where do you think you're going to go? Do you think that you after research you'll go back more into theater? Do you see that perhaps your performance side in theater also kind of informs perspectives too in your research? Is there sort of a reciprocity there too?
Yeah, so theater's always something that I'm going to do, but I've found this really interesting way that I can connect theater and BDSM and kink, so that is what I'm going to be doing for my PhD research.
That's wonderful. Let's put your hands together and wish her the best of luck for that research. Thank you so much. Okay, we're moving on to our next presenter, Holden Lowe's, in Environmental and Life Sciences with One Size May Not Fit All, Tailoring Cardiopulmonary Exercise Testing Thresholds in Patients with Heart Failure. Holden.
Heart failure is a global pandemic, affecting more than 65 million people worldwide. In fact, research suggests that more than a quarter of us here today will be diagnosed with heart failure. With several possible causes, such as substance abuse, heart attack, or a genetic disorder, heart failure is an incurable disease that occurs when the heart is no longer properly pumping blood throughout the body, resulting in debilitating symptoms such as swollen legs, shortness of breath, and most relevant to my research, exercise intolerance. With lower survival rates than some cancers, the only hope for many heart failure patients is a heart transplant. But with so many patients needing a new heart, how do we select the recipients? My research aims to improve the transplant selection process by providing key insight into which patients are most at risk for death and needing of a new heart. In the world of medicine, the gold standard for determining risk of death and transplant eligibility is through a cardiopulmonary exercise test. This is a specialized type of stress test that generates numeric data for several cardiorespiratory variables, each with an established threshold value that is used to help predict one's risk of death within the year. For example, patients who fail to achieve an oxygen uptake of 14 have more than a 1 in 5 chance of dying within the year. Think of it like an iceberg. Essentially, if you can't mount an exercise response that exceeds this threshold value of 14, as represented by the waterline, your chance of death increases exponentially. And while years of research has helped establish these threshold values, like this one, in the general heart failure population, as you may recall, there are several possible causes of heart failure that have been shown to influence disease mechanics and patient response to exercise, which begs the question, does the cause of one's heart failure influence these predictive threshold values? Or in other words, does this waterline change based on the cause of one's heart failure? While some researchers have attempted to answer this question, their studies alone do not hold enough power or merit to draw any conclusions. So, I've been consolidating and systematically reviewing all of their results to help finalize if and how these thresholds vary in patients with different causes of heart failure, which will allow clinicians to determine if it's appropriate to continue grouping heart failure patients, or if we should tailor these thresholds based on cause for more accurate prediction of risk and heart transplant eligibility. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Holden. You mentioned in your bio that you had a very special reason why this research means a lot to you. Did you mind chatting a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So getting into cardiology was driven through my grandfather actually going through 11 heart attacks in his life. So he was obviously a heart failure patient himself, which kind of inspired me. He was a very influential figure in my life. So I thought I would try and do him right by helping these other people that experience similar conditions.
Wow, that's really great. I'm so glad that you're on this path, and so glad too that you're not in Kentucky anymore. Can you tell us a little bit about why you were in Kentucky? Nothing wrong with Kentucky, don't get me wrong, but I'm so glad you're here. Why were you in Kentucky?
I went to Kentucky on a lacrosse scholarship. Out of high school, thought that that might be the path I wanted to pursue. COVID hit, and that kind of sent me back to this side of the border, which I'm very grateful for. I've made some great connections at Trent and in Peterborough, and here I am today, and I probably wouldn't be here if I was in Kentucky. So,
well, America's loss is Canada's gain, so let's put your hands together for Holden. Thank you very much. And now we have someone who's no stranger to the stage. We have Sandra Clement and Guessin from Environmental and Life Sciences with Savor, Digest, Release, Discovering Our Water's Big Recyclers. Sandra.
$500 liters. This is how much urine each one of us in this room produces every year. And what's special about this urine is that it contains essential elements such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and carbon, which are available in a chemical form that can be easily used by plants and sustain life. And where do these elements come from? Our food. Eat, digest, release. Now, this is for humans. Imagine how much urine, and therefore elements, are produced by all other animals on this planet, including in freshwater systems. And think about how the environment may affect the amount of elements that they produce. For example, if the color of the water in a stream or a lake is more or less brown, this would indicate that there is more or less decayed plants and animals. This would then affect how much light and nutrients get into the system, which ultimately will affect the quality of the food that they ingest. Or what if there are contaminants such as silver nanoparticles? This could then impair the functioning of the body of the animal, which will then affect how much elements they release. These are the questions I was fascinated by when I started my research. So I collected fish, mayflies, and mussels in streams, little lakes, and Lake Erie. Then I put the animals in individual bags and let them pee for 20 to 90 minutes. Then I measured nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon, and silver in their urine at 3 different scales: individual, population, and community. Here's what I found. 1, You pee some of what you eat. Animals excreted all sorts of elements, including nutrients, carbon, and the contaminant silver. But the amount of elements they released changed with the species characteristics. 2, your environment matters. The amount of elements released by the animals changed with the color of the water, the temperature, but not so much with silver nanoparticles. 3, we are stronger together. The relative nutrient contribution of animals in the water was the highest when animal biomass was high and nutrients in the water low. In summary, animals recycled different elements, but the magnitude of that recycling changed with the context. So dear friends, eat well, pee well. Your urine is liquid gold. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thanks so much, Sandra. Sandra, this is not her first time in 3MT. You can tell that, that she's been around, and she's so good at educating people. She's educated me, about water, and this is why I don't drink water anymore, because fish pee in it, right? I stay off water altogether. She's so smart. She has all this knowledge, and she's extra smart because you've just submitted your PhD for defense. Let's hear it. So, what's next for you? What are the big steps?
I will be starting a postdoc at University of Waterloo this September.
Oh, let's hear it. No. Woo, woo. Waterloo. Woo, woo. No, Waterloo. Woo, yeah. That's great. And since you've kind of, made hay with the pee, so to speak, are you going to continue with the peeing side of things, or how is that going to go? I'm sorry, I'm not a scientist. I'm trying to use technical terms, but how are you going to go forward with this, your research?
Yes, I will. So I've been working in streams and lakes. Now I'm going to be taking this to peatlands, which are wetlands, and I'll be looking at how we could do that kind of work in that ecosystem, but while developing protocols and biocultural labels that are respectful of indigenous principles. And so I will be focusing more on the how we can do it more so than doing it.
That is wonderful. I'm excited. I want to hear more about your research. Let's put your hands together. Don't be a stranger. Come back and visit us. Sandra, thank you. And now we have Hadia Mustansir in psychology with the effect of chronic stress on hippocampal plasticity and behavior. Hadia.
Imagine waking up every morning and feeling like the world's burden is on your shoulder. That is something that we all experience, right? That persistent feeling of being anxious and overwhelmed is what we call chronic stress. But what if I told you that chronic stress not only impacts our mood and well-being, but it also has an impact on our brain? See, have you ever noticed that every single wellness paper that you've probably read, stress is demonized? But is it really that black and white or good or bad? Several studies have shown that chronic stress impairs the brain's natural ability to learn and form memories. See, where we once thought that we have all the brain cells in the world, we now know that there are specific brain structures that form new cells well into adulthood. And that is called neurogenesis, the formation of new neurons. So, believe it or not, although this image right here may look like a fabulous art piece, this is actually what is seen inside all of us, in our brain, under a microscope, and in specific, a region involved in learning and forming memories. See, these blue dots that we see right here, which probably look green right now up there, these are newborn neurons. And studies have shown that chronic stress actually decrease the generation of these newborn neurons if we're under chronic stress. And that impacts our ability to learn and form memories. See, neurogenesis has been studied immensely. But what about the effect of chronic stress on learning behavior? So today, I want to shed light on our ongoing research about the effect of chronic stress, which is induced by corticosterol, which is a stress hormone in rodents that mimic depressive-like behavior in human, on neurogenesis and on learning behavior. So we assess behavior through a discrimination task, where rodents were giving like a task where they were to discriminate between an unsafe and an unsafe environment to assess how quickly they can learn between the two. Surprisingly, we found that the chronic stress group learned 24 to 48 hours earlier than the non-stress group. Now that is mind-blowing. And that is the complete opposite of what we thought we'd find, right? So this brings us to the question of what about this? Is neurogenesis really being impaired or not? And even if it is, does that have an impact on learning behavior? So after all, we can say that maybe stress does not always equal bad. Thank you.
Wow, good job. That's great. It's always so good to listen to you and hear about things. Stress is on everybody's mind, so it's such a timely topic. What do you do to, I guess you're saying you shouldn't avoid stress, because you're saying stress is sometimes a good thing,
Yeah.
but what do you do to avoid stress? Because we all know that stress can be a bad thing too.
Well, I pray, and I also listen to music.
Oh, and what
Yes.
kind of music? Because, you know, we have a record producer
I
here.
listen to every single music, Arabic, brown, white, sorry, not like every single type of music, every genre, okay? Sorry. I was talking about languages here, okay?
Well, since we're speaking, you had also graduated in ASL level 2.
did.
So how did that go?
Really good. I did it from Trail College, so I am like level 2 certified in American Sign Language now. And that is something really cool because when I went to Switzerland last year, I met a couple who basically who were just communicating with each other in like canned language, and I had level 1 certificates, so I was able to sit with them on their table and talk to them, which motivated me to come back and do level 2 here back at Trail College. So I'm happy.
Yeah, you make us all happy because it's the power of communication, and you embody the power of communication. And in so many ways, thank you for telling us about your ESL story and all that. And we only wish you the best of success. So let's put your hands together for Hadi.
Thank you.
All right. We're about halfway through, and it's now time for Carlos Quintero Arias in Environmental and Life Sciences. Here today, gone never. Forever Chemicals. Carlos.
Forever chemicals. What are they? You may have heard about them from a friend, in the news, maybe even a TikTok. But let me tell you, they are miracles of modern chemistry. Their utility and convenience has led to their widespread use across a whole host of platforms, from non-stick cookware to firefighting foams to water-repellent clothing. They're even in our microwavable popcorn bags. Their ability to resist grease and stability at high temperatures has made them so useful. So useful, we've put them in everything. And that's the problem. As their name implies, forever chemicals, once they're here to stay. The bonds in these chemicals are so strong, there's nothing to break them apart. And that leads to them contaminating our environment, getting into our waterways, and accumulating in these hotspots at these high concentrations. Recent evidence has linked these chemicals to a bunch of issues, to liver toxicity, immunotoxicity, cancers, and the list just goes on and on. And experts estimate that 98% of Canadians already have these chemicals in their blood. Now, these aren't like your old chemicals you may have heard of, like your DDTs or your PCBs. No, those are strictly regulated here in Canada. But these forever chemicals, well, not so much. Health Canada has some non-enforceable guidelines, and that set out maximum limits for these chemicals. But those maximum limits are 15 times higher than what are allowed in the US. Can you believe our neighbors down south are doing a better job than we are at controlling this pollution? It's time for action, and that's where my work comes in. If you ask me what the next cool hot topic is, I would say sensors. From an Apple Watch to a diabetic's blood sugar monitor to a COVID test. Sensors are everywhere. That's because they're simple, they're easy, and they're cheap. Currently, we do have some ways of monitoring these chemicals in our water, but they're expensive, time-intensive, and they require trained professionals. Normally, you would collect your water, ship it out to a lab, wait 2 to 3 weeks, and then maybe you'll have your results. There's got to be a better way. That's why I've been working on developing a sensor, something we could take straight to the source, straight to the water, and within minutes, find the concentrations of these chemicals. My goal is to make a sensor that's accessible to the most vulnerable populations affected by these chemicals in northern Canada or in developing nations where we're actually manufacturing these chemicals. And our results are really promising. We can accurately and reproducibly detect these chemicals in the Otonabee River right here. So it's time for action. We need to write informed regulation and policy so we can hold these biggest polluters accountable. And that all starts with simple, reliable sensors. Thank you.
Great job, Carlos. That's wonderful. And I also love time for action. I love how you're calling for action, but you're also working in the lab and getting the sensor test done. And I just want to hear more. What got you into this? Like, did you start with an activist sort of mentality, or did you start as a scientist? Are you a scientist activist? How would you define yourself?
Yeah, I guess I took a course with my thesis supervisor right now, and the course was biosensors, and that really sparked my interest in sensors. I've always had an interest as an environmentalist, being in the environmental life science program, so being able to incorporate what I really enjoy with sensors and electrochemistry and actually helping the environment was really interesting as a thesis project.
That's great. I tried to find out more about everybody, and everybody submits in bio information. You put 3 words, I watch movies, as your biography.
Yes.
So succinct, I like that. But could you maybe expand, what types of movies do you like to watch? Are they documentaries? Are they action movies? Well, what do you do, in your spare time?
I think I just really enjoy going to the movie theater and being on the other side and watching the screen. I'll watch anything. I'm not picky about the movie.
Oh, sounds great. And we are videotaping this, so you'll be able to watch yourself soon, which will be quite perverse. But, let's put our hands together for Carlos. Thank you so much. Someone to watch. And now it's Dev Senaway-Khatne in Environmental Life Sciences with Plant Hormones to Cure Disease. Dev.
Are you aware protein in our body change its shape can be lethal? So this is where my research make an impact by introducing a treatment against these misshaped protein. So I'll be utilized here plant hormones. Proteins are workhorses of life. When protein fold every time it fold into different shape and it govern many aspects around our body. So when proteins actually change its shape, they're attracted to each other, they make clumps and then accumulate and deposit in various parts of our body. So these protein clumps, known as amyloid fibrils, it look like a kind of a tangled mess of cables right here. Having these tangled amyloids actually causes diseases. And it can escalate to lethal levels. So it can cause Alzheimer, ALS, Parkinson, and list goes on. There is no turning back when these amyloids are formed. And one of its key features is its rigid structure like a brick wall. Having these amyloids, and we don't have in our body any mechanism to break them apart. Do you know by 2015, there are going to be 150 million patients who suffer from amyloid-related diseases? So currently, there are many synthetic medicines used to treat these amyloid fibrils. However, they show a lot of side effects. So that's why my research come and make a significant influence in this area. So I'm using plant hormones. Plant hormones, daily basis, we consume plants, and our body is already immune to plant hormones. So right here, these 2 molecules, transietin and kinetin, are well-known plant hormones. So not only it will break apart these amyloids, but also prevent the amyloid fiber formation. So far, results from many experiments has shown in presence of these two molecules, amyloid will break apart how a brick wall get collapsed. I hope my research will be eventually useful to make a new natural drug to fight against amyloid-related diseases in future.
Thank you so much. That's so fascinating, and I love the pictures, the breaking through, and it's great. You break through in a lot of different ways. You know, you said in your bio you like to work out. That's something. So
I try to.
You try to. I think I get that. You know, but it's good because it's hard when you're, especially a scientist, and you're like, you know, in the lab all the time. You got to get out and do things, but you work out, but you also do something also very special as well, and you're a baker as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So tell us more. Like, the working out is okay, but tell me more about the baking stuff.
Okay, that's a long story short. I every weekend bake to satisfy my husband's tooth craving. I mean, like, he's really into sweets. And then we had the idea we're going to start a YouTube channel because it's a lot of baking every weekend.
So you've started the YouTube channel, or that's just an idea?
I do have, but it's not on public.
So I know Carlos will watch that because he'll watch anything, right? So I'd watch that too because I like to, you know, we had that talk about stress earlier, and you know, they're about, you know, some stress is good. Well, I'm a stress eater, so I think you know that baking is a good way to get rid of stress. So,
yeah, that is really stress
So
related.
you find that helpful in your research and that, and that's great. So you're cooking up things in the lab, you're cooking up things at home. You're going to be on YouTube soon. Let's put your hands together, and what a wonderful presentation. Thank you. All right. It's now time for Stephanie Aultman in Anthropology with Memories of the Forest, Traditional Ecological Knowledge in North Central Belize. All right, Stephanie.
Think of a time when an older relative shared with you a little tidbit of information that changed how you did things. Maybe it was the secret ingredient to the perfect loaf of bread, or the exact plant to put in your garden to keep the pests away. The memories that our families and communities accumulate through the years hold an unimaginable wealth of knowledge about how to do things more effectively and more efficiently. However, as the world continues to move at faster paces, these memories can become lost as they're no longer shared with subsequent generations. My project aims to collect the specific memories of elders in the small community of Indian Church Village in Belize in order to fight problems of deforestation and environmental degradation. But how does this work? How can memories help us solve environmental problems? The answer lies in traditional ecological knowledge. Traditional ecological knowledge is the accumulation of practices and knowledge passed down through the generations, with a specific focus on the relationship between humans and their environment. This could include various agricultural practices or specialized plant knowledge, such as which species hold medicinal use. I will conduct a series of interviews with elders in Indian Church to collect their traditional ecological knowledge. Belize has been facing a rapid amount of deforestation over the past 30 years. As urbanization and mass agriculture spreads across the country, we can see since 1994, the area surrounding Indian Church has faced a drastic decrease in forest cover, resulting in the destruction of wildlife habitat and the loss of plant species. The knowledge provided by these elders can provide key insight into what plants might be important in revitalizing the local ecosystem. Many of the current agricultural practices are not sustainable long-term, so their knowledge can be used in community-driven reforestation initiatives that focus on the planting of key species and the use of more sustainable agricultural practices to find the perfect balance between fulfilling the economic needs of the community while still maintaining a healthy ecosystem. This project will help preserve the traditional ecological knowledge of Indian Church before it is lost, and it will act as an example of how traditional ecological knowledge can be used in tandem with other sciences to create better conservation solutions. Now more than ever, it is vital that we come up with new ideas in order to combat environmental change. And just maybe, these new ideas can be found in the memories of those who came before us.
So it really is in looking to the past that we can find solutions for the future. Thank you so much.
Wow, that's great, Stephanie. Thank you so much. Lots of fun facts here, like, well, so much to ask, but you were so great at communicating here on the stage in Belize. Talking about communication, how do you do your field research? Do you use a translator? Do you speak Spanish? How does that all work?
That's a really good question. So it's usually ideal in ethnographic work to be able to speak the language of the country that you're going to. I am currently learning Spanish, although I'll admit I'm not at the level that I should be. So I will be using a translator. So he's a local from Indian Church. I've met him before, we're good friends. And he's going to act as my guide and translator, talking to these elders and just kind of asking them questions about the forest. And hopefully we'll actually get to go into the forest as well and actually look at the plants.
Well, I think that's really special too, because if you have a translator who already knows the elders, then there's already some trust built up, right?
Exactly. That's so important in ethnographic work, is building up that trust between yourself and your interviewee. And so that's like a really good bonus that I have going into it.
That's awesome. And I always knew you were quite an upright and forthright person because you were in Scouts Canada for a while, weren't you?
Yes.
It's,
yeah, you have the left handshake.
So tell us more about being in Scouts.
Yeah, so I was in Scouts for a very long time, since I was about 11. It really changed my life. It gave me so many opportunities to travel. I got to go to Japan with them, to Finland, and it really fostered my love of the outdoors, camping, hiking, learning about plants. My dad was also my scout leader, and so he would quiz us when we went camping on the different tree species. So I'm becoming a little bit of an expert in Canada, but now it's my turn to become an expert in Belize.
That's great. And I guess one final question, while the judges are marking up there, you have a cat named Ducky.
I do have a cat named Ducky.
Just checking that out, okay.
Yeah, she's a little calico cat. She's turning 2 in June, so happy early birthday. She's named Ducky after the Land Before Times movies, if anyone knows those. She is absolutely wild, and she's very cute. She went to the vet today, and she did very well, so yay for her.
And you'll have a Ducky sitter while you're off in Belize?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I have my roommates will take care of her, but I will miss her a lot.
I bet. And we're going to miss you. Thank you so much for coming and for presenting today. Thanks, Stephanie. All right. Now it's time for Oshadi Ranasinghe in Environmental and Life Sciences with Cover Crops, Nurturing Soil, Nourishing the Future.
Imagine a farmer in Ontario faced with the challenge of managing their fields sustainably while struggling to optimize nitrogen availability through fertilizer application. What choices would you make if you were in their shoes? Well, let me tell you about one such practice, but before that, let's take a moment to appreciate the complex and astounding world beneath the surface of those fields, the soil. It's a living world bustling with creatures and capable of trapping greenhouse gases. However, if not managed properly, these gases can escape into the environment, causing global warming. In the backdrop of major land use changes over the last few decades, our focus on cash crop management practices has become crucial. One such practice is incorporating non-cash crops, known as cover crops, into cash crop rotation. Now, you might wonder what exactly are cover crops. These are not just ordinary crops. They serve as a champion against soil erosion and promote biodiversity. They can also significantly reduce fertilizer usage by enriching soil with soil organic matter and fixing nitrogen. Cover crops during the off-season act as nature's protective blanket. In my research study, I used advanced laboratory techniques to assess soil samples from different fields with different crop rotation phases managed by a single operator. I also used molecular analysis methods to study teeny tiny microscopic creatures engaged in the nitrogen cycling. Those are known as nitrogen cycling soil microbial communities. The results of my study are compelling. The benefits of cover crops are not just theoretical, they are tangible, and they are rooted in our soils. Cover crops not only improve soil health, but also engage in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So, As we navigate the complexities of modern farming, let's remember that the choices we make today reverberate in the very soil beneath us. Cover crops also help us as a sustainable tool to accomplish Canada's ambitious goals for 2030. Thank you.
Wow, that was great. I just loved hearing that, that. Now, cover crops is just so fascinating. What brought you to this? Did you have a background in farming or in agriculture, or what brought you into this world?
Yeah. Actually, when I was back in Sri Lanka, I was environmental, young professional. So I was working on the field of environmental sustainability. So I worked at Unilever Tea Division. So my major focus was to promote sustainability in tea plantation. I worked with farmers. So it is so much relevant to the context here in Canada.
That's great. And how far along are you in your research now?
I'm actually done with my thesis.
You're all done now. So what's the next step? Yeah, let's hear it. Yeah.
I'm currently working as a research assistant at Trent and looking for full-time jobs.
Yes, okay, out there are jobs. We just put that out there, But not only do you enjoy researching the soil and crops and that, you like getting outdoors, especially with your son. Did you tell us a little more? Where is he? Hello.
Say hi. I enjoy my time mostly with him because last 2 years I have been working on my research, so I got less time for him. So now whenever I get a time, I play with him and go to nature trails with him, enjoy walking. Yeah,
that's wonderful.
That's it.
Well, you are very well-rounded. You've got it all figured out. That's wonderful. We wish you only the best of success. Let's put your hands together. All right. Next, we have Jenna Bolzon in psychology with Standing Up for Science. Paying attention to replication issues can unearth a ton of problems. Jenna.
Imagine working for the Department of Defense. Every day you search drone footage of Ukraine to identify a possible attack from Russia. The cost of misidentifying a target could be catastrophic. You could accidentally bomb a group of children hiding in the forest thinking it's an infiltration. In such high-stake environments, every step must be taken to improve attentional performance. Even a 1% improvement could save hundreds of lives and billions of dollars. Therefore, the military has turned to researchers such as myself to find ways to improve attention. Now, what if I told you someone reported that just simply standing could improve attention? Forget spending billions on new technology, just stand up. Well, this is where my research started. We attempted to replicate DeVoley and Abrams' demonstration that posture affects visual search, but we failed to replicate. We also failed to replicate their demonstrations that posture affects reading and task switching. So maybe we didn't make our tasks hard enough. Were we just unlucky? I therefore ran 2 experiments where I doubled and tripled the search difficulty. No effect of posture on attention. I then ran a 3rd experiment where I increased the difficulty of the posture manipulation by having participants stand on a slanted surface. No effect of posture on attention. So where to next? Well, perhaps in our research, participants were sacrificing their standing performance in order to perform better on the visual search task. So I ran 2 dual task experiments to test whether the theoretical account could produce DeVoley's effects. They do not. This made me take a hard look at other research by DeVoley and Abrams. Abrams is famous for his demonstration that visual processing is more efficient near the hands, called the near-hand effect. Well, DeVoley and Abrams recently reported the surprising observation that the near-hand effect also occurs for semantic processing and imaginative processing. So why not replicate? And my results, again, show no effects. So it started for me as a project that felt intuitively true, as a lot of people love working at their standing desks, has turned into a serious replication crisis. Abrams is a world-famous cognitive psychologist, and DeVoley has quite a few influential papers. I've run 7 experiments with 4 more underway, and every single one has failed to replicate when I use larger, consistent sample sizes. So I'm left asking, where does the problem lie? Is there something in my research I'm missing, or is there something going on in the original research produced? That's the next question I face. Thank you.
Wow, that was great.
Thank
you so much. And I just love this idea. It's like science, inquiry. It's not about necessarily answers. It's about more questions, right? And you're finding you're finding some serious questions. That is it you? Is it me? Or is it you? Or is it actually the original research that is problematic? So I think that is great because you're at the core of what inquiry is all about.
Well, thank you.
So let's put our hands together for someone who's getting down deep. I don't want to embarrass you, but I read your bio and I was inspired by what it said. Would you want to talk to people a little bit about the past 2.5 years of your life and perhaps what happened before?
Yeah, 2.5 years ago, I had a stroke and it wiped out my whole long-term memory. It caused a lot. Half of my body was paralyzed. I spent 2 months in the hospital learning to walk, talk, everything. So hence why I was allowed to have notes here today. I didn't use them, so I'm proud.
Didn't use them. That was incredible.
Well, thanks. Yeah, but I struggle still with aphasia. I still do speech therapy. I have memory loss, obviously, and I can't memorize things really because 21 years of my life were wiped out.
And what's inspirational, you're writing a biography of your life called 21 Cups, is that right?
Yes,
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I wrote a book. All my friends were like, "You're so inspirational, write a book." And I was like, "I'm just an ordinary girl, who cares?" And then people bought it. So I have a book on Amazon if you're interested.
I think we all are, and I think we buy a lot more than the book. We buy that you're a wonderful person too. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today. Thank you. Okay, folks, we're in the home stretch, getting towards the end, but lots of great speakers coming up, including Syed Hashemipour in applied modeling and quantitative methods with AI-driven optimized deep learning model for accurate COVID-19 detection using chest X-ray images. Syed.
Harnessing the power of artificial intelligence in medical diagnostic imaging not only accelerates the detection, but also enhances leveraging the healthcare with precision and speed. My research project focuses on advancing AI-driven models for precise COVID-19 detection in chest X-ray images, leveraging deep learning algorithms and convolutional neural network models. The importance of conducting my research lies in aiding in early detection of the disease and reducing the human errors. Once developed, it can be used widely, particularly in areas where access to medical professionals may be limited. Deep learning algorithms have the potential to rapidly process large-scale medical data and be easily adapted to detect any new mutations and variants of the disease. The proposed frameworks consist of different components, empowering a large-scale radiography dataset, including 3,600 chest X-ray images, to be pre-processed and enhanced using image pre-processing techniques. In the training phase, I utilized different pre-trained convolutional neural networks and an optimization technique in fine-tuning the hyperparameters of the entire network to detect the best model that achieved the highest detection accuracy during model evaluations. Finally, this best model will be used to classify new X-ray images into two different classes, COVID-19 and healthy cases. So this framework can be used to detect any new related disease, like lung diseases, not only, and can be used as a framework in the future. In the end, I would love to dedicate my research project to the flight PS752 victims as a tribute to those who tragically lost their lives in the downing of the Ukrainian International Airlines on January 8, 2020, from the skies over the city of Tehran. Justice will prevail. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate, big data modeling is so important. What you do, what other people in your program do, because I get really frustrated with the world. There's so many bits of data, so much going on. Knowing there's people like yourselves collecting it, analyzing it, finding algorithms is exciting and hopeful for the future. What do you like the most about the work you do?
Leveraging the power of artificial intelligence right now, combining with big data analytics can be effective, specifically in medical diagnostic imaging, and can be of help because it reduces the human errors and also detects the new variations of the virus.
Yeah, no, that's so important research. Where are you with your research? Are you almost finished, or are you halfway through? Where were you in things?
Yes, it's almost done, and I will be graduated by the end of this semester or maybe by the end of this academic year.
That's really exciting.
Yeah,
okay, thank you so much. Everybody put your hands together for a great project. Thank you so much. Okay, now it's my privilege and pleasure to announce Samantha Rohn in Indigenous Studies, who will be speaking Help Me, Help You, addressing anti-Indigenous racism in healthcare. Samantha!
How many of you have heard the name Brian Sinclair? Or Jordan River Anderson? Or Joyce Echequan? These names represent the collision of anti-Indigenous racism and healthcare, and it had deadly consequences. What if I told you that these names represent cases that were just big enough to grab those headlines? What if I told you that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of similar smaller cases that represent the systemic, pervasive nature of anti-Indigenous racism in healthcare? How did we get here? Well, prior to colonization, there were systems of health in place that met the needs of the people at the time. Cut to treaty negotiations that had inclusions like healthcare and education, and I think it's safe to say that that kind of didn't pan out the way it was supposed to. This brings us to the Indian residential school and Indian hospital/segregated healthcare era. These two institutions saw similar issues: overcrowding, underfunding, abuse, medical experimentation, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. But I think it's safe to say that the history of the healthcare system in Canada and Indigenous people is riddled with medical trauma. But it must be different now, right? Well, the names that I mentioned before suggest not. The thousands and cases in my research suggest not. But the cases suggest not. In fact, the level of re-traumatization as a possibility for Indigenous people seeking care is extremely high. Why is that? There is no standardization in the education of healthcare providers on Indigenous peoples and their issues. In fact, it's actually a patchwork of approaches, and it is brought on by the rush to implement the TRC's calls to action. This is a problem. My research hopes to affect the education policies of healthcare providers today and hopefully address anti-Indigenous racism, confront stereotypes, address bias, and hopefully have a positive impact for the interactions between Indigenous people and healthcare providers. Thank you.
Great job, Samantha. I know you stumbled a bit, but you came right back, and we all appreciate it. You had the audience behind you the whole time, so let's hear it for Samantha. We're behind her the whole time. I've always thought you're a powerful person of great strength, but you always have a smile. And how do you, where do you get that strength in the face of such difficult topics, right? How do you center yourself when you have to face this every day in your research?
I get to play with my 2-year-old and embarrass my 12-year-old when I pick her up from school. It is my favorite pastime because it's so easy. And then hanging out with my 16-year-old and thinking, thank God he's not doing what I was doing at 16. So,
that's why you're so happy. It's like,
yeah. I'm like, oh, something's working out.
No, the research you're doing is so important and powerful. And where would you like it to see it go? Like I think we all want to see it go somewhere positive. Where would you like to see this research, and how could we build upon this research?
Well, I'd like to see kind of an approach that's more unified across the medical system's educational institutions. Right now, I get to work with a few fabulous people at Trent, helping to affect that change at Trent. So hopefully, I really just want to change the world for my kids so they don't have to go through the same thing, and just make it better that one little bit at a time.
That's so wonderful. Start small and big things can happen. Let's hear it for you, Samantha. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for Christian Bihun in Environmental and Life Sciences with Solving the Bioenergetic Equation for Walleye in the Great Lakes. Christian.
This map behind me shows the ice coverage on the Great Lakes on January 22nd of this year, a historic low of just 6%, and one of many climate warming records that we broke this year. There is no doubt that our aquatic environments are warming at an unprecedented rate. And the thing is, we really have no idea what this means for our fish populations. We have to remember that fish are ectotherms, they're cold-blooded, and that temperature directly increases the amount of energy they spend at a given moment. And coincidentally or not, we are finding more and more evidence that the average size of fishes may also be getting smaller. Now, one of the best tools we have to investigate the growth of an ectotherm is something called a bioenergetics model. And the concept behind a bioenergetics model is simple. Whatever energy goes into the fish is equal to the energy that fish can spend, and whatever is left over can be stored into the tissues as growth. And we can incorporate temperatures, such as climate warming, into this model through its action on the energy expenses, which we refer to as the animal's metabolism. Now, the goal of my research is to build a bioenergetics model for one species in particular, which is this guy here, known as a walleye. Walleye are one of North America's most important fishes. They support an enormous amount of commercial, recreational, and indigenous fishing. Their economic value is in the order of billions of dollars, and the largest populations on the continent are, of course, here in the Great Lakes. But to build this model, we need a lot of data. So I collected walleye from Lake Ontario and from Lake Erie. I brought them into the lab, and I measured how much oxygen they consume, how much they were breathing. And I did this at different temperatures as an indicator of how much energy these fish spend while at rest. If you're curious to know, a large adult walleye burns about 40 calories on a hot summer day if it does nothing at all. But we also need to know how much energy a fish spends while it swims around and does what wild fish do. And this is a little bit trickier to accomplish, but we've actually been tracking walleye throughout the Great Lakes with small implantable devices. And inside these devices is essentially a step counter. But rather than counting the number of steps, we are counting the tail beat of the fish. And we can convert that tail beat into a unit of energy using calibrations that we made in the lab. So if you want to know how your step count compares to a walleye, I'd be happy to catch up with you later. But in conclusion, we are several steps closer to building a robust bioenergetics model for walleye, which I will use to predict the effects of climate warming on the growth of this important species. Thank you very much.
That was great. I learned more about walleye in 3 minutes than I've ever heard about walleye before. And
Perfect.
But you know all about walleye because you're an outdoor camper, fisherman. Is that you kind of enjoy being outdoors?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I like to consider myself an outdoorsman. You'll find most of the fish biologists, we also like to fish and do outdoor things and stuff. So.
How did you get into? Is it just because one day you were fishing, you're like, what am I going to do for studies, and then you hooked a walleye, and you're like, oh, there we are, Or how did you come to this?
I have sort of the classic origin story. Grandpa was a big angler. My dad's an angler. But for this project in particular, the past few years I've been working at a walleye hatchery in Manitoba. So when this project came along, I kind of knew it was the perfect project for me.
Are there any difference between Manitoba walleye and like Ontario walleye? Are they or do they fight each other? Or are they like very similar?
You know what? There's walleye all across North America, and there's all kinds of tiny little differences. There's greenbacks, some are gold, some are brown, all shapes and sizes.
Do you have a favorite walleye? Just asking.
A Lake Winnipeg greenback is the prized, the trophy fish. So. They're probably the nicest.
Is that guy one of those? Is that the...
This is a walleye right here, but Lake Winnipeg up in Manitoba.
No, but is that the prize Lake Winnipeg walleye? Is that what they look like? That kind of gold, or is just...
Yeah, most of them
look a bit like
run-of-the-mill
walleye type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, that's again. Let's put our hands together for walleyes and for you, Christian, all this hard work. Thank you. And now it's time for Mikhail Rangiev in Environmental and Life Sciences with Establishment of Diverse Cover Crop Mixtures Impacted by Nutrient Management. Mikhail.
Have you noticed that last few summers were very hot and dry? We start hearing more frequently about historically highest temperatures in the news media. Believe it or not, Otonabee River used to fully freeze during winter seasons, but it does not happen anymore. That's right. That's all the consequences of global warming. But how does a global warming affect something that we highly depend on, like agriculture industry? Well, multiple reports show that the global warming effects on Ontario agriculture industry will be pretty destructive. In the next century, the average temperature is expected to rise by as much as 3 to 8 degrees Celsius, bringing more drought and heat waves to the east central region of Ontario. This will consequently decline our crop yields and potentially will put our food security and food sovereignty under considerable jeopardy. So, in order to adapt to inevitable consequences of global warming, we should find sustainable agriculture practices that will mitigate the effects of climate change on our crops and soils. And that's where my study comes in. The regenerative environmental movement and multiple studies done in Midwestern United States suggest that cover crops can be a potential nature-based solution to our future and contemporary environmental problems in agriculture industry. And by itself, cover crops are defined as the crops planted into agricultural fields to improve soil health and to enhance water availability. So, during summer of 2022, we established our cover crop trial, in which we planted 14 different mixtures of cover crops with 2 different nitrogen treatments: conventional fertilizer, ammonium sulfate, and biological fertilizer called Envita. And our study has found that on average, cover crops produce 29% more plant biomass under conventional fertilizer treatment, while it's storing 15% more water in the soil compared to our control. On this drone picture, you can easily identify the areas where we applied conventional fertilizer. It's considerably greener. So our results suggest that proper nutrient management might reduce soil water losses while increasing cover crop biomass yields which overall can be a very valuable knowledge in the farmer's toolbox in the face of future climate change scenarios. So maybe our enemy can be our best friend. Thank you.
That was great, Mikhail. Thank you. Lots of interesting things in your bio. One that you started this all, you're inspired by growing up on a farm in Ukraine, or how does that happen?
That's correct. I'm Ukrainian myself, and my dad owns a farm in Ukraine. And so, as you probably heard, Ukraine is a grain basket of Europe. And because we have amazing soils, very fertile soils. However, we lack these sustainable and regenerative agriculture practices that can help us to create this sustainable economy in the face of climate change. And that's why I studied this topic, and that's why I decided to come to Trent, because it has a sustainable agriculture program.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm so glad you're here. And I guess, is it comparable, Ukrainian soil to Canadian soil? Can you take these lessons here and can you translate them to Ukraine, or this really a Canadian-centric type of study that you're doing?
Absolutely. I mean, I came here kind of with this idea of taking all the knowledge from you Canadians and apply it in Ukraine. So I like to think about myself as a little spy, but yeah, it's definitely transferable.
Well, you're welcome. I'm glad that we can help you out in your espionage, because we were quite happy to help you make the world better one crop at a time. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for Madeleine Fortin in Public Texts on Contemporary Curricular Reconciliation, the Power of Language, and the 1886 First Early Reader in the English and Blackfoot languages in pictures and words. Madeleine.
Thank you. There's an urgent need to indigenize curriculum today, and this comes out of the Truth and Reconciliation report. We need to look to the past in order to understand how do we address the curriculum issue that we are seeing in K-12 classrooms. What I plan to do is looking at language textbooks that were used in residential schools, because this is where we understand the power of language. Because when we use language as a way to assimilate and suppress Indigenous people, it is not something that is talked about, and so we need to look at it. As we see here in the first one, a warrior is a bad thing. Connecting this with the image of a person with dark skin, with feathers and a bow, demonstrates a correlation that we are making, that these early readers are presenting. It is showing that there's binary between good and bad, the former being a Christianity agenda rather than an Indigenous identity. And when we see here, the Indians are poor, they don't know religion. We have this understanding that Canadian identity is one that is filled with racism, and it is proven through these textbooks that were used in residential schools. We need to look at these textbooks in order to understand how we can grow as educators so that we can create classrooms for students that are empathetic and kind towards the next generation. I want to look at the power of language because that is where all teaching starts. It is when we talk and when we speak and when we teach that we learn to be better people. Thank you.
Oh. Don't run away. No, that was great. It's, wow. Thank you for bringing this particularly pernicious pedagogy tool. Like, it is a whole nother level of horrible to think that young Indigenous children are reading this and learning to be hateful of themselves in their daily lessons. So what drew you to this, and what do you think can be done through your research to maybe enlighten people to the ways that existed before?
So I think one of the main reasons that we need to be looking at this is, one, it's under-examined, actually, like the actual texts that were used within the residential schools. And the other part is that because we have this knowledge of indigenizing curriculum, it's not being done in the most effective way. And that's because educators just don't know what was going on, because there's a gap in knowledge there. And so if we establish a way of teaching not only educators but also students, then we are growing a deeper understanding and a more resilient community and collective growth towards education for the future. And I think that's what's really important about this work.
Yeah, so well said too. Thank you so much. Let's put our hands together for Madden. Thank you so much today.
Thank you.
And now it's time for Kenneth Adama in Sustainability Studies with Navigating Canada's Housing Crisis, a closer look at international students. Kenneth.
In 2014, the Canada government launched an international education strategy with the intention of welcoming more international students into the country. But they, however, failed to provide a complementary strategy to accommodate the incoming students. International students have been arriving in Canada and have faced the harsh reality of the housing market and have been severely affected by the housing crisis in Peterborough. This is simply because the housing needs of international students have been placed at the margins of society and they have been deemed unimportant. Yet, it is safe to blame international students. Now, when you consider my slide, if after a while you are not able to see that this is more than comedy, then it highlights my points that we have not taken seriously the housing needs of international students. And we've also not considered how international students themselves perceive their crisis and the negative effects they have to go through. Studies have shown that about 68% of all Canadian households that spend 30% or more on housing are renters, meaning that at the core of the affordability crisis is the rental market, and international students are significant contributors to the rental market. What this means is we cannot have a comprehensive understanding of the housing affordability problem without considering the rental market and without considering international students who are the drivers and influencers of this market. This is where my research comes in. My research seeks to look at international students' perceptions of the housing affordability crisis in Peterborough in order to address the crisis and ensure housing justice. As I collect and analyze my data, I have identified barriers international students face in accessing housing, which include financial constraints, limited knowledge about the housing market, discrimination, and insufficient support from the universities. And even when international students find housing, it is often in less desirable spaces and distant from the school. My research seeks to serve as a means of knowledge mobilization for international students before and after their arrival in Canada, in addition to the scholarly contributions and the benefits the Peterborough government can benefit in developing appropriate policy interventions. If universities continue to welcome international students and charge high fees, it is only adequate that they provide adequate housing support. But that's not the end. We are all involved in this. Thank you.
Great job, Kenneth. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. You, of course, personally, part of this research comes from your own struggle in finding housing in Peterborough. Did you want to talk a little bit about that? Or?
Oh, no, I don't.
Yeah, okay. It's on your bio, so I just thought you might want to, but we don't have to go there. If you don't want, we can go the other way and say, when you're not thinking about this, because it is a big part of your day-to-day, what do you do to get away from this? What do you do to enjoy? Do you listen to music? Do you, what do you do to kind of take your thoughts away from your research?
Well, usually I like to take a walk around my neighborhood and just see what's happening and just listening to music. I think that keeps me calm and Besides, I don't think I do anything else.
No, it's good. Yeah, it's good. We were talking about stress eating. I like to eat. That keeps me calm sometimes too. Do you go to different places? Is there a place in Peterborough you like to eat? Is there?
Oh, no, not really.
No, that's okay. It's all right. There's almost too much choice, right?
Exactly, there's too much choice. Just Lansdowne has so many things you can try.
Yeah. So with your research, are you hoping to publish this, or what's the end result with this? Or have you published some of this already, or what would you like to do?
I'm not published. I mean, I'm still in my first year of my research, so I have a long way to go. But eventually, I hope to publish it because this is really important and how to highlight issues of neglect for international students, and not just international students, every other marginalized groups face some form of neglect, one or the other. So this is just to sensitize people as well. So let's see how that goes.
No, I think it's so wonderful, and I think it's great research, it's important research, timely research, and more people need to hear about it. So let's put your hands together for Kenneth. Thank you so much. And well, folks, that's it. That is our presentations for today. So let's put your hands together. Now, everybody should have in their hot little hands one of these brochures, and inside it you have the ballot. So what we're going to do is take about 15 minutes for intermission. Our judges now have the hard job of tallying and putting together, judging the top 3 prizes, but the 4th prize, the audience choice, is all about you folks. So please do not spoil your ballot. Check only one of your favorite. Deposit that with one of our academic skills staff in the intermission, and then come back in about 15 minutes. All right, are we almost all back, everyone? This is super exciting. We're now going to wrap up this year's 2024 3-minute thesis, and we're going to start with the Office of Research and Innovation Award. But before we do that, I just want everyone to put your hands together for a spectacular judging panel of Dr. Stephen Stone, Dr. Bob Ezrin, and Sarah Budd. And I'd like to, I feel bad putting them on the spot, but I'd like our 3 judges to stand up and come up on stage to present the Audience Choice Prize. I know, it's so quiet. Hello, Sarah. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Bob. But wait, before you get to present, we would like to offer you our sincere thank you and a token of our appreciation. So, Dr. Beckwith, do you mind rolling out the swag? But wait, there's more. They're watercolors, that's what they are, rolled up like that, of Trent University. So again, thank you to our judges. And now, very awkwardly, with your hands full, I'm going to ask you to talk about the Audience Choice Prize. So do I start with you, Sarah? We
weren't prepared for this, but I did want to just say how delighted I am to be here and how impressed. I mean, that's the word I would use. I'm just totally impressed. You guys should feel so proud of yourselves, every single one of you. Big round of applause for them. You guys did fabulous. I was really impressed.
Yeah, so I do this for a living, and I want to say that the presentation style, the preparation that you all did, the way you comport yourselves, the way you hold yourselves, handle yourselves, extremely impressive, and you're all pros in my book.
Michael talked about nunc cognosco ex parte, now we know in part. And it's the motto of Trent University, and the spirit of Trent University, it started way back when I was a student in the mid-1960s, was set by Tom Simons, its first president. And he had a vision for a university which prized thinking in new, different, and adaptive, flexible, compassionate ways, combined with a college system and a way of teaching that is multidisciplinary. And that's what sets Trent University apart from almost every other university in Canada, and why it's been for 13 years in a row the #1 undergraduate university in Canada. And what we are seeing tonight is the product of that liberal arts thinking, where the young people on stage here, I am so impressed by their ability to study in new and different ways. And these are ways that are going to be so important over the next few years as we face a world that is exploding because of artificial intelligence, because of all the things that are just revolutionizing the way the world is going on. Those people who can think, the young students who were up on the stage tonight, all 17 of them, are showing what it is to be the warriors of the future. It is up to them and up to us to save a world that is desperately in need of saving, and I am so inspired by what they showed us tonight. We are in good hands.
Right. And we'd like to announce that the winner is Jenna Bolzon. Come on up, Jenna.
Here's your prize if you want to give that to me.
Hi, Jenna. Well, congratulations, Jenna. And you've got a prize in here. You've got now we should have, is there a photographer where we can have a photo op? And do you have a word to an audience that would love to just hear what you're feeling at this exact moment?
Overwhelmed?
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
thank you. Unexpected?
Well done.
Thank
Congratulations.
You. Thank you.
One more photo.
Okay.
A photo.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Bob. This is better than Oprah. Everybody's leaving with prizes, and you get a poster, and you get a prize, and who's going to get the next prize? Well, we're going to see now. I'd love to invite up the only Emma Kazaki. Well, I can't even get up. Emma, you're going to kill me. Where are you? Oh, hi, Emma Kazaki. How are you doing? Emma is our outgoing TGSA president, who's been 2 terms in that. Not only is she a brilliant scholar, but also a member of our board of governors. And I'm so sorry I butchered your name in public, Emma. It's okay. I'm going to give you the microphone.
What do you want me to say?
Well, I would like you to announce the winner.
Oh my goodness, I get to you? No way. Is there an envelope? Oh my gosh. That's so exciting. Oh my gosh. Somebody near and dear to my heart. Christian. Get over here. Thanks, sir.
Thank you so much.
Good job.
Awesome. No, just thanks to my supervisor and my girlfriend and my family.
Perfect. Good speech. That's exactly.
These are for you.
Oh,
And
we
then
need
it's
to
for
look
you.
at the hand.
Thank you.
Good job, dude. Grocery money.
Good job. Great job. And thank you, Emma, and thank you also for the TGSA for their $500 for this great prize. And now I would like to, the next one's the Catherine Parr Trail College Prize. Maybe I get to do this one. Oh, great. This is very exciting for me to give out this prize, and Trail College is very happy to support academic skills in doing this presentation every year. And so it is my super deep honor, and I'm very happy to announce that Stephanie Aultman is the Catherine Parr Trail College second prize winner. Congratulations. You did such a great job. There you are. There's your suitable for framing certificate. Hi. All hail trail. See that?
All hail trail.
There we are. The College on the Hill. Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Now we're ready for the big one. There we are, Professor Suzanne Bailey, our Associate Dean of Grad Studies, is here tonight to give away the big one. So without further ado, let's put your hands together for Professor Bailey.
Hi, everyone. Also bringing greetings from the Dean of Graduate Studies, Craig Bernetti, who is not able to be with us this evening. It's my great honor to present the grand prize from the School of Graduate Studies. But before I do, I just want to say to all of the participants, you are all winners in our hearts. We are so, so proud of you. You do this institution proud, and we wish you all the best in your future work and careers. We were going to hear much more from you. And I'm sorry we only have one first prize, but here it is. The winner of the School of Graduate Studies Grand Prize is Jenna Bolzon. Jenna. Come on up, Jenna. Congratulations. Your certificate. Come take a photo. All Hill Grad Studies. Wonderful. And Jenna, would you like to say a few words? Again.
Just thank you. I've got nothing.
Oh, you got everything, as all of you do. Thank you so much. Thank you to our audience as well. You've been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, folks, it's sort of sad in a way because this brings us to the end of such a wonderful time. It's happy and exciting. We had such a great one, I think one of the best 3MTs ever, but sad that we all have to go. But happy in the thought that we leave with great memories, great ideas, and ways to change the world, which I think is super exciting. Well, before we end then, I just want to say a couple of thank yous because gratitude is so important. Knowing in part, as our chancellor said, is that is important, and indeed that is what our motto is. But another big part of the collegiate way of what makes Trent special is the idea of humility and gratitude. And that sometimes gets lost in research and academe and the rat race that we're in. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you to a whole bunch of special people, including Dr. Sue Beckwith, who is with academic skills, and this couldn't have happened without her. Let's hear it for Sue. Aaron Stewart Eves, which I think this is your last one in this particular role. So where are you, Aaron? Thank you so much for being a part of it, and congratulations with your new role with the university. And all the academic skills team. I don't know, I can't see you all here, but let's put your hands together for everybody from our academic skills team across the colleges. I'd like to thank Chad, Patricia, all the gang with Market Hall. Thank you for letting us have the venue. Thanks, guys. Yeah, Market Hall. Don White, I can't see him right now, but that's okay. He's our videographer for tonight, putting it all together. Thanks, Don, for everything as you always do for us. Thanks, Don. We have several Trail College interns here and the staff of communications. Thanks to the Trail College interns and communication staff for being here tonight. Let's hear some big applause for our sponsors, the School of Graduate Studies. Let's hear it for the school. Woo! For the TGSA, yeah. For the Office of Research and Innovation, yeah. And for Trail College. Again, we have incredible judges, Sarah Budd, Bob Ezrin, and Stephen Stone. Thank you so much, guys. Let's hear it for them. I would like all of our contestants to stand up and wave at the audience. Let's take a big bow, contestants. Let's hear it for our contestants. And of course, we couldn't do it without you. So thank you, audience. Let's hear it for our audience. Yeah, audience! Best audience ever! And we'll see you all back here in 2025. Thanks, everyone. Oh. Thanks, guys. Back here in 2025.